On Christmas Eve, a stray bullet killed his 7-year-old son and permanently shattered his vocal cords. The police failed him, the legal system ignored him, but instead of giving in to despair, this father marked one date on his calendar, December 25th. Exactly 365 days to transform himself into a one-man army and wipe out the entire gang responsible. But can a man with no voice, no military background, and zero combat experience survive a suicide mission against a cold-blooded cartel? The story begins in a quiet, idyllic suburban neighborhood during the height of the holiday season. Streets are lined with bright festive lights, families are sharing meals, and children are opening presents. Among them is Brian Godlock, an ordinary, hard-working electrician who wants nothing more than to give his family a peaceful Christmas. He is sitting in the front yard with his wife, Saya, watching their 7-year-old son play happily with a new toy. It is a moment of pure, uninterrupted family bliss. Without warning, that domestic peace is shattered into absolute chaos. Two rival street gangs, engaged in a violent turf war, come roaring down the quiet residential street in heavy vehicles, spraying full automatic gunfire at each other through the neighborhood. Before Brian or Saya can even register the sound of the gunshots, disaster strikes. A stray bullet pierces through the air and hits their young son right in the chest. Within a fraction of a second, the boy collapses onto the grass, his life extinguished instantly. As Saya screams in total agony, holding her lifeless child, a terrifying wave of shock and fury washes over Brian. Blinded by unimaginable grief and adrenaline, he does not take cover. Instead, he charges toward the street on foot, tracking the speeding vehicles as they turn down the block. He runs with everything he has, determined to catch the men who took his child's life. Brian follows the sound of screeching tires into an alleyway, where one of the gang's vehicles has ground to a halt. Confronting the car, Brian comes face-to-face with Playa, the cold-blooded leader of the cartel gang. But Brian is an unarmed civilian, completely out of his depth. Before he can even take a step forward, Playa calmly raises a handgun and fires a heavy bullet directly into Brian's neck. Brian collapses into a pool of his own blood on the cold pavement as the gang speeds away into the night. Miraculously, Brian does not die. He wakes up weeks later in a sterile, dimly lit hospital room, covered in tubes and monitoring equipment. The doctors manage to save his life, but the damage to his neck is permanent. The bullet tore through his larynx, completely destroying his vocal cords. He is handed a small whiteboard by a nurse, realizing in absolute terror that he can no longer speak, scream, or make a single sound. He is permanently mute. The weeks that follow are a dark, spiraling descent into pure misery. Brian is discharged from the hospital and returns home, but he is a completely broken man. The house, once filled with the laughter of his son, is now buried under a thick, suffocating silence. Brian retreats into heavy alcohol abuse, spending his days staring blankly at his son's untouched bedroom, while drowning himself in bottle after bottle of cheap liquor. His marriage disintegrates right in front of him. Saya tries desperately to reach her husband, attempting to get him to communicate through written notes, therapy, or shared grief. But Brian's eyes are empty, filled only with self-loathing and a burning, unexpressed rage. Unable to watch the man she loves destroy himself from the inside out, Saya packs her bags, tears streaming down her face, and leaves the house for good. Now completely alone in an empty home, Brian reaches his absolute bottom. One evening, after staring at a glass of whiskey, a sudden shift occurs within him. Grief transforms into an icy, single-minded focus. He pours every drop of alcohol in the house down the kitchen sink. He walks over to the wall calendar hanging in the kitchen, flips the pages forward to December 25th of the following year, and grabs a red marker. Across that date, he writes two definitive words: kill them all. With a precise deadline set, Brian completely restructures his life to turn himself into a killing machine. He converts his entire garage into a rigorous, low-tech training facility. He buys heavy weights, punching bags, and pull-up bars. Day after day, month after month, the quiet electrician pushes his physical body to absolute exhaustion. He lifts weights until his hands bleed, runs miles through the cold nights, and conditions his body to absorb brutal physical punishment. Recognizing that physical strength is only half the battle, Brian turns his attention to tactical warfare. He spends hours on the internet studying tactical shooting stances, hand-to-hand combat techniques, and weapon maintenance manuals. Because he cannot legally purchase firearms due to background checks and psychological flags, he enters the criminal underworld. Using online black markets and shady back alley cash deals, Brian buys unregistered handguns, shotguns, and semi-automatic rifles. He turns an abandoned industrial warehouse on the outskirts of the city into his secret firing range. Night after night, the sound of rhythmic gunfire echoes inside the empty steel building. Brian practices drawing his weapon, reloading in high-stress scenarios, and firing at moving targets with rapid precision. Muscle memory replaces fear. Hesitation is erased completely. To handle the mob's overwhelming numbers, Brian knows he will need more than handguns. He needs a war machine. He purchases a beat-up, heavy-duty muscle car with a massive V8 engine. Working late into the night with his electrician and mechanical skills, he completely overhauls the vehicle. He installs reinforced steel plating inside the doors, upgrades the suspension, and fortifies the front bumper with heavy steel framing. He takes the modified car to empty gravel lots, practicing high-speed ramming maneuvers, tactical reverse turns, and offensive driving techniques. Meanwhile, Detective Vassal, the lead investigator assigned to the unsolved drive-by shooting that killed Brian's son, continues to work the case. Vassal is frustrated by a corrupt, indifferent system that has allowed Playa and his gang to run the streets with complete impunity. During his routine surveillance of the gang's territory, Vassal notices Brian's muscle car lingering near known cartel hideouts. Vassal quickly connects the dots and realizes that the grieving father is planning something drastic. But instead of arresting Brian or tipping off the gang, Vassal feels a deep sense of guilt for failing to bring the killer to justice through official channels. The detective decides to keep a quiet distance, monitoring Brian's movements without interfering. Months pass, and the seasons turn. Winter returns to the city, bringing with it freezing temperatures and fresh snowfall. Exactly 365 days after the tragic death of his son, December 24th arrives, Christmas Eve. Inside his dark home, Brian prepares for his final mission. He straps on heavy tactical body armor, loads his reinforced muscle car with a terrifying array of weapons, extra magazines, and explosives, and zips up a black leather jacket. He takes one last look at a framed photograph of his son on the mantelpiece, setting it down gently face first. He walks out to his car, turns the key, and drives off into the freezing night toward the cartel's stronghold. His first target is a fortified, street-level drug distribution hub operated by Playa's top lieutenants. Brian parks a block away and approaches the building from the shadows. Moving like a ghost, he slips through a back entrance. Using a suppressed pistol and lethal close-quarters combat skills, he begins eliminating guards one by one. The entry is methodical, cold, and completely quiet. A guard standing in a hallway is taken down before he can reach for his radio. Another is dropping from behind before he can raise his weapon. Room by room, the distribution hub goes dead silent. By the time the remaining gang members realize something is wrong, half their crew is already dead on the floor. Panic spreads through the local gang network. Calls flood into Playa's central headquarters, warning the boss that a silent killer is cutting through their ranks. Realizing he is under direct attack, Playa orders every available gunman in the city to converge on his main compound, a heavily guarded high-rise facility. Instead of sneaking into the main compound, Brian chooses absolute brutality. He lines up his heavy-duty muscle car down the street, slams his foot onto the accelerator, and roars toward the compound's main gates. The reinforced steel bumper smashes through the heavy gates at high speed, crushing the entrance guards and slamming directly into the courtyard. Brian kicks open his driver's side door, throwing smoke grenades into the courtyard before stepping out with a shotgun in hand. A chaotic, explosive firefight erupts. Cartel members pour out from every corner, firing wildly into the smoke. Relying on his body armor, tactical training, and sheer adrenaline, Brian moves through the crossfire with terrifying efficiency. He returns fire with devastating force, dropping multiple attackers with precise shots while taking hits to his vest that would stop any normal man. As the body count rises inside the compound, Detective Vassal arrives at the scene, having followed the emergency radio calls reporting massive gunfire. Vassal steps into the courtyard, taking in the scene of absolute destruction. Seeing Brian pushing upstairs into the main building alone, Vassal draws his service weapon. He makes a conscious choice to join the fight, stepping in to clear Brian's flank and eliminating several ambushers who were preparing to fire on the father from behind. Together, the mute, vengeful father and the tired detective fight their way up the stairwells, clearing floor after floor of heavily armed gang members. Gunfire rips through plaster walls, glass shatters across the corridors, and blood stains the concrete steps. Brian takes a hit to his arm and another to his leg, but he pushes past the agonizing pain, driven purely by the image of his son's face. Finally, they reach the top floor, Playa's heavily fortified penthouse office. Brian kicks open the reinforced double doors, stepping into the luxurious room. A final, desperate gun battle breaks out. Detective Vassal takes a round to the shoulder, falling back against the wall, but manages to take down Playa's last remaining bodyguards before collapsing. This leaves only two men standing in the ruined penthouse, Brian and Playa. With both of their firearms empty, Playa draws a long tactical knife, grinning maliciously as he recognizes the man whose life he destroyed a year ago. Brian draws his own blade, his eyes cold and devoid of fear. A brutal, bloody knife fight ensues. Playa, an experienced and vicious street fighter, uses low strikes and dirty tactics, inflicting severe slash wounds across Brian's chest and arms. Bleeding heavily and running on empty, Brian is forced onto his back, with Playa pinning him down and slowly pushing a blade toward Brian's throat. Playa whispers taunts into Brian's ear, mocking his silence and the death of his son. In that final, agonizing moment, Brian finds a reservoir of strength deep within his spirit. He ignores the steel cutting into his skin, grips Playa's wrist with both hands, and wrenches the blade away with a surge of raw force. Flipping the momentum, Brian drives the blade deep into Playa's chest, pinning the gang leader to the floor. Brian leans in close, staring directly into the eyes of the man who took his child, holding him down until the life drains completely from Playa's body. Justice has been delivered. The cartel is destroyed. With the room falling dead silent, Brian slowly slumps back against the window frame, exhausted, heavily wounded, and bleeding out. In the distance, the faint wail